let's dig in to the Carolina-Boston series a little bit now and welcome in our friend Scott Burnside, who is out in Raleigh right now to cover this series. And Scott, I want to ask you the big question in terms of the big question everyone wants to know here. Freddie Andersen, what's the status? Could he potentially be available for game one?
I think the bigger question is, are you getting to game one, Tyler? That's the bigger question, I think.
To the top of the hour, Scotty. I don't know what just happened. I am struggling right now. But anyways.
No, anyway, back to your big question, and it is a good one, although I will tell you, it's become less. I'm a little bit surprised it's not a bigger story locally, but I think that's a function of the depth of the Carolina Hurricanes, how they finished the season. This is the team that won the Jennings Trophy, allowing the fewest goals during the regular season. They had the number one penalty kill. I don't think there is as much concern about the absence of Frederik Andersen, even though he will, in my books, wouldn't be surprised if he ends up on the final Vezina Trophy ballot, but certainly I'm expecting he'll be in the top 5 of the voting when the GMs are done with that. And I think that's because we've seen Antti Raanta, who is expected to start in game one tonight, 32 years old, his first ever NHL playoff start, but a veteran guy who's been very good, and especially in the last half of this season, been excellent. And then, of course, the kid, Pyotr Kochetkov, came up at the very end of the regular season, won his first 3 NHL games, 2 as starter and 1 in relief. I know internally there was a lot of discussion with the Hurricanes. What's the best plan of attack, assuming that Frederik Andersen is not going to be ready anytime soon? He was on the ice. Rod Brind'Amour he touched the ice is how he described it on Sunday. I don't think you can expect Frederik Andersen in the short term. I don't think it matters to this team, though. They play the same way. They play with such great structure. They roll the 4 lines. They obviously have they have the best defensive team in the NHL, top to bottom. So I don't think it matters that much outside of the Carolina Hurricanes, who's in goal, actually.
Scott, when you take a look at the season series between these two teams and how the Hurricanes have absolutely pummeled the Bruins throughout the season, give me a vibe check on the Hurricanes and their confidence level, because they were really one of the most consistent teams throughout the regular season, and they kind of hit this spot in late March, early April, where they really weren't quite as good to come down the stretch. There's been a lot of people sort of knocking the Hurricanes, even though they won the division. Well, this team doesn't have a true superstar and they don't have the goods to go on a deep run. What's the confidence level like within that room, do you think?
Yeah, you know what? I think it's really high, and it all, it starts and ends in Carolina with the defending Jack Adams Trophy winner as Coach of the Year in Rod Brind'Amour, and it really is, it permeates from Rod Brind'Amour, the belief in the system, the belief in his group, and there's no question they don't have an Austin Matthews, they don't have a Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon. That's true. I think in many ways Boston and Carolina are fairly similar, right? I mean, the Bruins they have the experience. They have a future Hall of Famer, of course, in Patrice Bergeron. Their blue line is very solid, in similar ways to the fact that the Canes' blue line is very solid. So it's not like either of these teams has the traditional game breaker. I think the way that Carolina plays, though, and historically, they are better as the games go on. Their goal differential in the third period is impressive. They're a team that doesn't quit. So I think that's where the confidence comes from. And I also think this is a team, that I think they've learned, right? They've been beaten by the Bruins in the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years, once in the conference final in 19, and then in the first round after the play-in round in 20, and of course lost to Tampa in the second round last year. Those are building block lessons, I think, for a team that really, the core is very much the same. I think this is one of those teams, we'll get to it in my bracket, but I think this is a team that is learning from its past playoff failures. It's a tough matchup against Boston first, but I kind of like it because of the playoff history there. I think this is a team that believes they can run the table.
Scott, there is a lot of talk, and Frank mentioned it, like, the Canes maybe don't have that superstar level of player. lower in the lineup, though. That's often you get these unsung heroes in the playoffs who can come through. And yeah, you don't need the superstar because you got a third liner who's on a crazy run. Who's maybe someone lower down in the Canes lineup who you look at and go, their best hockey might be coming in the next 2-3 weeks here?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we did a whole range of dark horses for Daily Faceoff. My pick for the Hurricanes was just Barry Kotkaniemi. Was injured. He's had a couple of bouts this year. It's been a little difficult for him, of course, after signing the offer sheet with the Montreal Canadiens. And, I think he felt a lot of pressure coming in with the big number. He's since signed a big extension that brings his number back to a more manageable number, which makes sense given how young he is and really where he's at in his evolution. But he's a big body, skates well, he's got good offensive skills. He's played almost all in the middle, right? So he's a natural centerman, and Montreal is a little bit different for him. I think he's a guy that will gain confidence from playing in this system in the playoffs. It's going to be different from what he experienced in Montreal. He had 3 points in the first period of game 82 after missing a handful of games with injury down the stretch. So the fact that he gets back in the lineup, he's going to get a little bit better matchup, I think, playing in that third line, fourth line role for the Hurricanes. But he does have the goods, I think, to chip in important points, which I think is going to be critical in this series against Boston.
All right, let's wrap it up with the big question then. Who wins and in how many games, Scott?
I have the Hurricanes in 6, and I'm feel pretty darn good about it right now, actually.
There you go. Overtime, Scotty B. Appreciate your time. Enjoy this series, and we'll chat soon.